the fine was 80 quid. And I'm like, I would probably pay a £20 fine, but making a fine £80 for not paying an extra pound is outrageous.
Well, exactly, and I think there is a sort of question of proportion here, which is leading a lot of this conversation. Under the current system, it's not uncommon for people to be charged 100 times over what they expected to pay for, as you say, simply entering the wrong car registration or for their ticket falling off their dashboard. So I think this streamlined appeals process will ultimately make it easier for people to claim against these erroneous charges.
Right.
But I think what this ultimately calls into question is the wider issue of parking charges and fines.
Yeah.
And we see this in councils, for example. If you look at Camden Council, it was a particularly egregious example of this. In 2019-20, the financial year, they actually made £43 million off of on-street parking charges, 10 million of which was related to these sorts of fines. So I think it's important for everyone to remember that these fines, whilst they may be necessary in some circumstances, they shouldn't simply be a source of revenue which should be tapped into.
No.
Well, indeed, and I think there's certainly consideration here for greater extenuating circumstances, as you can see in these proposals. For example, in cases of medical emergency and things like that, which seem quite right to me. The TPA has long campaigned against things like hospital car parking charges, for example.
Yes.
And the fact that these things even exist, I think, really demonstrates the financial burdens that drivers face day to day.
Well,
fuel duty would be another example of that. Where each budget campaigners have to scratch and claw just to get the fuel duty rate frozen.